In a high school, a football coach named Mr. Joe trains his students hard for the upcoming football game at the school. He gets mad at all his students, including Stan, whom he says must focus or leave the team. Stan also gets upset, but Gabe holds him back. Mr. Joe even slams a chair and then sees water leak out. He holds it back, and someone mysterious appears behind him. One night, the principal, Mrs. Drake, meets with teachers named Mrs. Brummel, Mr. Tate, and Mrs. Olson to discuss the school budget. Mrs. Drake refuses to fund every learning field. She only wants to fund American football, especially since there will be a football game soon, because this is a football town. After the meeting, everyone leaves, but Mrs. Drake forgets her keys. She goes back to take them and meets Mr. Joe, whose attitude becomes strange. Mr. Joe asks for a pencil. Mrs. Drake gives it to him, but he stabs her hand with a pencil. Mrs. Drake runs, but drops her keys. She goes to the door, but it is locked with a padlock. She tries to escape through the window, but Mr. Joe has already come, so she hits him. Mrs. Drake grabs the scissors and takes her dropped keys. She unlocks the door and manages to get out. After she locks it back, the scissors fall. Suddenly, Mrs. Olson, who has already changed, stabs Mrs. Drake many times with scissors, and finally, she dies. The next morning at school, a cool car arrives, driven by a guy named Zeke, who sells inhalant drugs. Then a boy named Casey gets off the school bus. He's a photographer and also an assistant for the school newspaper. He sees the editor of the newspaper, a girl named Delilah, and he also has a crush on her. Then a girl named Stokely accidentally bumps into Stan. Casey, who gets bullied, is noticed by a new student named Mary Beth, who wants to go to the school office. In the teacher's room, the nurse, Mrs. Harper, coughs with the flu, while Mr. Joe drinks water nonstop. Mrs. Olson arrives, looking different and beautiful, and Mr. Joe calls her pretty. She smiles. Casey, who eats lunch alone in the field, finds a strange creature. Suddenly, Mr. Joe appears and says he often sees Casey and knows he does not like sports. Casey answers that he will run if he gets chased. Mr. Joe, hearing the word chased, says, "Oh, I like that." Stokely, who rinses her mouth, sees Mrs. Olson meet Mrs. Brummel in the classroom, with Mrs. Olson closing the door. Casey takes the strange creature to the science teacher, Mr. Furlong. Mr. Furlong checks it and discovers that it is a parasitic sea organism called a mesozoon. He does not recognize its surface tissue at all and thinks Casey has found a new species. Zeke, who is also good at science, checks it and says the parasite escaped detection in the mid-20th century. Mary Beth looks amazed and says Zeke knows everything. Gabe mocks Stokely, saying the parasite comes from her planet. Stokely pushes Gabe's hand, spilling water onto the parasite, and the parasite reacts. Mr. Furlong thinks water makes it active. He puts the parasite in water, and it comes alive. Mr. Furlong wants to touch its texture as the surface pattern changes. When his hand gets close, the parasite splits itself. Suddenly, it bites Mr. Furlong's finger. He says he will report it to a university for study. Stokely touches the glass, and the parasite's red veins spread around her hand. Stan decides to quit the football team to focus on studying. Mr. Joe says okay. While Stan showers, Mrs. Brummel appears with wounds on her face. She asks for help, saying she cannot breathe. She tells him he does not know what is happening and that they are hunting everyone. When Stan touches her head, her skin peels off. This makes Stan report to Mrs. Olson, but Mrs. Olson says Mrs. Brummel is diagnosed with cancer. Casey, who is there, photographs Mr. Joe, who stands on the field wetting himself with water. Zeke, besides selling drugs, also sells porn tapes to kids. His actions are caught by teacher Mrs. Burke, who says private business is not allowed at school. Some students already complain that Zeke sells drugs. She threatens to report him to the principal, but Zeke ignores her. Mrs. Burke knows Zeke is smart, but he fails school because of his behavior. Still, Zeke ignores her and Mrs. Burke leaves. Casey and Delilah search for news for the front page. Casey finds a parasite interesting to publish, but Delilah is not impressed. They go to the teacher's room to search for more. They snoop into teacher's belongings, and Casey shows Delilah Mr. Tate's alcohol. But Delilah already knows about it, even his private problems. Casey says Delilah is annoying, but could be a nice person. Delilah realizes Casey is flirting, which makes her smile. Suddenly, a teacher is about to enter, so they hide in a small room. Mr. Joe and Mrs. Olson drink, but Mrs. Olson splashes water on his face. She asks where Mrs. Brummel is. Mr. Joe says she did not survive because her body was too old and overheated. Meanwhile, Casey, who sits close to Delilah, unconsciously smells her. Delilah smiles again, teasing him, "I smell nice, huh?" They overhear that the teachers want to change all the students and staff. Mrs. Harper enters to take her medicine, but Mrs. Olson blocks the door and Mr. Joe attacks her, inserting the parasite through her ear. Casey and Delilah, shocked, accidentally knock over Mrs. Brummel's corpse. Mr. Joe and Mrs. Olson hear the noise. When they open the door, Casey hits Mr. Joe's stomach with a broom, and he and Delilah run. They get blocked by Mrs. Harper, but finally escape and meet Mrs. Drake and Mr. Tate. They explain, but Mrs. Harper appears fine again. Casey and Delilah keep running. Later, Casey calls the police and his parents. The police check, but only find a dummy body. Casey insists the incident is real. The teachers explain that Mrs. Harper just had the flu and carried medicine in her bag. Mrs. Drake tells the police they can call Mrs. Harper in her office, and the police agree. Casey sees the police go into Mrs. Drake's office, but when they come out, they have already been changed by Mrs. Drake. The police report nothing strange. Casey's mother wants to take him to a psychiatrist, and Mrs. Drake wants to talk privately with her. Casey quickly agrees to go to the psychiatrist instead. They leave, and Mrs. Drake winks at Casey. The next day, Casey meets Delilah, who now wears glasses. She says they must report to the police, but Casey says the parasites already control the police. Delilah feels confused, seeing everyone act normally. They decide to look for Stan and Stokely. Mr. Joe enters the teacher's room, where all the teachers drink water, which is already controlled by parasites. Even coffee is gone. In class, Stokely secretly likes Stan. Mary Beth notices and purposely pushes Stokely towards Stan, making them talk. Meanwhile, Zeke collects his drug inhalants, and Mary Beth sees him. Zeke offers Mary Beth, but she does not want it because her body stamina is low and she is allergic. Stokely and Stan see students line up and ask what it is. Stokely feels something strange and sees Harper do ear examinations to every student, but Mrs. Drake closes the door. Delilah and Casey come ask Stan and Stokely for help about the teacher parasites. Casey and friend arrive at the lab and see the parasite in the aquarium already gone. Casey says maybe aliens control the school. Stan still does not believe. Back to Zeke and Mary Beth, who talk. Then they see the students acting strangely. Zeke's customer comes and wants to buy all of Zeke's drugs, but Zeke does not want to, and says that this is where he stole the lab equipment to make his drugs. Besides that, Zeke likes Mary Beth, and coincidentally, they are alone, so they kiss. But suddenly they hear the voice of Casey and friends in the next room talking about aliens. Zeke enters and mocks that Casey is the alien. Mr. Furlong also enters, then Zeke says that Casey thinks Mr. Furlong is an alien. Mr. Furlong closes the door, and when Zeke wants to go out, he is slammed. Zeke takes the paper cutter and chops his fingers. Zeke takes the drug tube and stabs into Mr. Furlong's eye. Mr. Furlong fights back by slamming Zeke into the aquarium. Suddenly, something happens to Mr. Furlong that makes him overdose, and his eyes foam white. Casey takes one parasite, then they decide to escape using Zeke's car. And Stan finally believes that aliens really control the school. They escape calmly, and other students stare at Casey and his friends. Zeke brings the friends to his house. Inside the house, Zeke has his own lab and wants to experiment with the parasite that Casey takes. He tests it on his rat, and the parasite reacts by entering the rat's ear. Zeke kills the rat and checks the parasite again. Zeke says that the parasite attaches to its host and controls it. This small parasite is not complete to live alone, but it is part of a bigger organism. It is also able to multiply, but it needs a moist host, which is a human. Casey remembers the conversation between Mr. Joe and Mrs. Olson about how Mrs. Brummel's body is too old, so she cannot survive the parasite and finally dries out. Next, Zeke tries to test with his drug that has diuretic, a medicine used to release salt and water from the body through urine. The drug can dry the parasite and kill it. Stokely, who is smart in science, also says that all aliens are connected, kill the alien boss, and all aliens will die and turn back into humans. But they do not know who to fight because they do not know which is an alien and which is not. Stan assumes maybe one of the friends here is the alien. The friends start to accuse each other. Meanwhile, outside Zeke's house, a car arrives. Zeke has the idea to give all his friends his drug as a test to see if they're not aliens. Start with Casey, who becomes high. Next, Zeke, then Stan, then Stokely, then Delilah. But Delilah orders Mary Beth first. Mary Beth says that she is allergic. Zeke then tells both of them to inhale together. They inhale, and Delilah turns her face away, and it is seen that she has already changed into an alien. Delilah destroys Zeke's lab, and she escapes with the waiting car. Zeke says Delilah already destroys his supply of drugs. Casey and friends will return to the school to hunt the alien boss. The football match has already started. The friends believe Mrs. Drake is the alien boss. Stan and Stokely in the match say that the parasites will change everyone in the field until tomorrow no human remains. They see Mrs. Drake in the audience, and Mrs. Drake also sees them. At the gymnasium, Mrs. Drake appears, and they tie her. Casey tells her to inhale the drug, or Stan will shoot. Mrs. Drake begs not to, which makes Casey hesitate. And Zeke headshots Mrs. Drake. They feel maybe their choice is wrong, but Mrs. Drake rises again, releasing parasites that Mary Beth sprays with drugs, and finally, she dies. Then, they want to check the people outside. Stan wants to check and asks for one drug. Stan goes to Mr. Joe and his team, whose parasites react, but then the parasites go back inside their bodies. Suddenly, Stan comes back and says that he is really Stan. The friends want to test him to inhale the drug. He wants to inhale, but spills the drug powder, which shows that he is already controlled by an alien. Stan says this is much better. No fear or pain. It is beautiful. Zeke tells him to go away. Next, the friends accuse Mr. Joe of changing Stan. Because the drugs run out, Zeke wants to take more from his trunk. Casey helps Zeke get it. On the way, they meet Mr. Joe and his team. They plan for one of them to be bait. Because Casey runs fast, he becomes the bait. He distracts the people to chase him. Casey enters the school bus and meets Delilah. But Casey manages to escape to the top of the bus and escapes from the people. Meanwhile, Zeke searches for his drugs, but they are gone. Then he meets Mrs. Burke. Mrs. Burke wants to buy Zeke stuff, but Zeke says it is finished. Zeke sees some drugs in his car. Zeke starts his car, and Mrs. Burke enters. While drifting to dodge Mrs. Burke's attack, Zeke wears a seatbelt and crashes the car into the bus, throwing Mrs. Burke. Her cut head moves with the parasite back to her body. Zeke escapes, back to Stokely and Mary Beth, who still wait for them. Mary Beth asks, "Who do you think is the alien boss?" Stokely says it can be anyone. Mary Beth talks to Stokely, then asks if she is not tired of pretending, because she herself is tired. Mary Beth hits Stokely. It turns out Mary Beth is the alien boss. She transforms into her real form. Casey already comes back, then they run to the swimming pool. The alien Mary Beth quickly chases and catches Stokely. The alien Mary Beth wants to eat Stokely, but Stokely manages to escape with Casey's help. The alien Mary Beth appears, and they run inside. The alien Mary Beth changes back to human form. Zeke appears, then meets Stokely and Mary Beth. Stokely and Mary Beth accuse each other of being an alien. Zeke is confused, though Mary Beth already inhales the drug. But it turns out that when Mary Beth wants to inhale, she blocks her nose and secretly throws away the powder. Zeke wants to stab Mary Beth, but Stokely stops him, who has already changed into an alien. Casey catches her and locks her in a metal fence. They both hide, and when Zeke wants to stab alien Mary Beth, Zeke is thrown by alien Mary Beth, which makes him faint. While searching for Casey, Mary Beth confesses that in her world, there is an endless ocean as far as the eye can see, but now it is already dried. So she escapes to Earth to meet humans. She can make humans become part of something special and perfect. Casey takes some drugs from Zeke and runs when Mary Beth changes into an alien form. He runs to the back of the bleachers and activates the closing machine. He crawls while alien Mary Beth chases and manages to trap alien Mary Beth. Casey says, "Guaranteed you'll be satisfied," then stabs the alien's eye. Casey is sprayed with parasites on his face until the parasites enter his body. As the alien Mary Beth dies, the parasites inside Casey come out by themselves, and finally, the alien Mary Beth dries up. The next scene shows Casey returning to the locker. Then he wakes up Stokely, and suddenly Zeke appears from behind. 1 month later, everyone is already returned to normal. Zeke joins the American football team, and Mrs. Burke watches him. Meanwhile, Stokely, who likes Stan, finally becomes a couple with him. Casey is shown by Delilah magazine with his photo on the cover. Casey is considered a local hero because various news media have revealed that the alien invasion attempt has now become public knowledge. But the police reject the statement of several students that the event involves aliens because no strong evidence has been found. The faculty movie ends with Casey wanting to be interviewed by the media, but before that, he and Delilah kiss, and finally, they become a couple. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.